Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I'm going to show you how to make this cute note card set to go in the mosaic box I showed you how to make a few months ago. I'm using supplies from our sponsor Papermart. You can find them online at www.papermart.com. I love these 5x6 craft paper jewelry boxes because they fit the note card envelopes perfectly. I'm going to use some jeweler's tissue to dress up the presentation on this note card gift set, and also for embellishing the cards I'm using Papermart brand Baker's Twine. It is gorgeous, it comes in so many colors, and it is really high quality. So without further ado, let's go to the table and make some beautiful cards. For these cards, I'm using a layering set by the company Altenew. To make this process easier, I'm going to stamp all my layers at a time. So I'm going ahead here and using this little tool my friend Jody made me out of a clear DVD jewel case. It basically has some fun foam and a grid on the bottom to make lining up stamps really easy. And I'm going to stamp this base layer of my rose on each of my card bases to start off with. Then I'm going to go in with my medium layer and a medium color ink, which is a little bit darker than what I just used, and I'm going to stamp on all of my medium layers on each panel that I'm stamping. Then finally I'm going to go in with my shadow layer and stamp those down each time. So it really makes lining these up a snap, and I'll put some information in the video description if you want to make your own little stamp positioner. It only costs a couple bucks and it really is a time saver. Now if I was just making one of these cards, I wouldn't bother with this stamp positioner. I'd just use my regular stamp mounts, but this does save time if you are making a bunch of these for a gift or for holiday cards. I also wanted to put some layered leaves in my design, so what I'm doing here is I am arranging my rubber stamp with this image to stamp facing down right on my card paper, and then I'm closing the lid of my CD case to grab the stamps so they'll be in perfect position. Now I want to make sure that I don't get the green ink on top of my flower, so I cut a little mask out of Post-it paper. Now here's a quick tip. I keep all my masks in the package that I store my stamps in. That way I don't have to cut them again. They'll be, you only have to make your masks once. You can use them over and over again. So there I put my well-used mask over my flower stamp, and I'm going to ink up the leaves in a couple different shades of green, starting with my lightest for my base colors. Don't forget to mask and re-stamp all of your flowers while you're at it so you don't have to reline up your stamps again. To position the leaf shadow stamps on your card, leave the mask in place, leave that last card there where you had it, and just put the layer stamps down right on top of the green stamps you just stamped. And then when you close the lid of your CD case, it's just going to pick up those stamps again, just like it did with the flowers, and you'll be able to stamp all the shadows down at once. Then you can remove your mask after you've got that final layer stamped, and the leaves are just a 2-layer stamp, and you can reveal your beautiful multi-colored stamped image. Do that for each of your cards that you have left. Using die cuts is a great way to make the card making process faster. What I did was I took all the panels we just stamped and die cut them into a fancy label shape. Now you can also trim them down with a paper cutter too, and it would be just as pretty. I also went ahead and die cut a bunch of banner tag shapes, and then I looked through my stamp stash and I found some happy birthday sentiments and some thank you sentiments and some thinking of you stamps as well. That way I can make all of these labels that can go in this card set, and then the recipient can choose which one they want to put on their card. I wanted to keep the embellishments simple on my card, so I started with some blue and white striped Baker's Twine. I'm just holding it on the back with my thumb and wrapping it a couple times around the panel in the front. I experimented with tying it in a bow in the front on some cards, but I really like the simpler look of just wrapping it around a couple of times. To secure it down, I'm using a couple strips of foam tape. Now that's going to give this panel a little bit of dimension on my card and also trap down those Baker Twine ends. I also die cut several of these flower swirly motifs that I had, because you know what, once you buy a die cut, you've bought and paid for it, and all your uses after that are pretty much free. I thought they'd make a really lovely accent to this card and not add a lot of weight if you were to mail this in the mail. So what I'm doing here is just turning it around and trying to figure out the best way to position it on my final card. The card bases that I'm using are simply half sheets of Kraft paper scored and folded in half, making an A2 size card that fit the Papermart note card envelopes perfectly. I felt like the card needed a little extra touch, so I'm going through my jar of blue buttons and choosing a couple of dusty blue buttons that I think will accent the card perfectly. You can glue this down with any thick and tacky glue or hot glue or even a glue dot. On one of the cards, I'm adding the sentiment. That way the recipient will know that they are to add whatever sentiment they need using the included foam squares that I'm putting into the kit. So I decided I would put a thank you on one of these cards because everybody needs thank you cards. And that just gives them an idea of where to place it to, so that they have truly a kit of cards that they can use for whatever occasion they need a card for. Oh, one more thing, when you're doing these cards, the little die cuts, they'll need a little extra glue. I'm using a fine tip applicator just to put tiny little dots of glue under some of the swirly bits that are not being trapped underneath the adhesive from the label that we stuck down earlier. And you can do that with a toothpick and white glue if you don't have a fine tip applicator. It'll work just fine. Now let's put this set together. Here's a mosaic box I showed you at the beginning of the video, and I'll put a link in the video description on the tutorial on how to decorate that box. It's one of the craft paper boxes from Papermart. Then I'm taking the jeweler's tissue and folding it back so it meets the width of my box. And the fold is on the inside so you won't see it when the box is closed. Now I'm putting in my Papermart envelopes, which I did decorate with a little stamp and the same color ink that I used on my cards, and I'm putting in my 4 cards. You could actually fit 6 cards and 6 envelopes in this box if you wanted to. Now I'm putting the card on top that has the label. That way the recipient will know what to do with the enclosed labels. And you'll notice that I stamped a lot more labels than I have for cards because I figure someone might need 3 birthday cards or 3 thank you cards or 3 thinking of you cards. That way they have those options. And I'm putting that right in there with the foam adhesive squares. That way they won't need any extra materials in order to add those sentiments onto the card. Then simply fold over the tissue, pop on the top, and you're all set. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, you'll give me a thumbs up and share it with all of your crafty friends. I want to thank our sponsor Papermart for bringing us all these wonderful supplies that we use today. You can find them online at www.papermart.com, where we make you look even better. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting!